some reason.
What do you think, dude?
Oh, well, the wind is back today.
Yeah. On the hill, it's really.
Dr. Dan.
I've got snow drifts in my street
That's just what it
behind
is.
the house that I've never ever seen before.
This meeting to order, please.
Charlie, we can go home now.
Good
This
luck
is
with
a-
that.
Through it, take a lot of pressure off me, Larry. It does.
$1,500,000.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hey.
The chairman's working over here.
Yeah, we're trying to bring this meeting to order. If we could stand and say the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Rennie?
Here.
Inman?
Here.
Thomas?
Yep.
Wheelock? Max Bauer?
Here.
Lathrop?
Here.
Chairman Lemkool?
Here. Thank you very much. Before we get started, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Rennie being an older person yesterday. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate that. You get to our age, they're all appreciated.
We love celebrating these, don't we?
I appreciate that.
So if we could do public comment rules, please.
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding the time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Orders of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Okay, is there anybody from the public that would like to make comment? Seeing everybody rushing to the podium, we'll close public comment and we'll go to our agenda. You ready, Danny?
Yes.
Danny Brown, the Facilities Director. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss the operation and facilities management and funding levels required to achieve them. Based on your request to provide an overview of our services, I present the following information. Our customer base, you're asking for an overview of facilities management. Our customer base is employees, taxpayers, visitors of both Grand Traverse County and the city of Traverse City, anyone utilizing services in our parks, and all can be qualified as a customer, actually, of us. Establishing a service cost for our customer base could range from providing basic operations all the way to a full-scale luxury suite. I strongly believe that the Grand Traverse County maintains a safe and secure setting for its customer base. While our buildings and equipment continue to age, we strive to be fiscally responsible with taxpayers' money. Concerns impacting services or revenues. Changing legislation issues could ultimately impact our services through the loss of state revenue sharing, decreased general funds, and et cetera. I don't see that facilities has any control over these changes and would instead adjust the workload accordingly should anything be implemented. The budget change both demographically and internally, and the area continues to grow. The county has opened or expanded service locations without any increase to facilities level. Examples include the Health Services Building, both Lafreniere and the existing Garfield location, Hall of Justice, Woodmere Law Enforcement Center, the Sheriff's Storage Building, Maple Bay, Nature Education Reserve, and the Joe Meyer House, Farmhouse. Potential increases to our revenue and less reliance on general funding may be possible throughout review of how facilities management charges, if at all, for unbudgeted projects or work performed for the city operations. And we do the city, we take care of the 2 fire stations. While this may not significantly increase our revenue, it would help to determine true associated cost, wages, fuel, vehicle usage, materials, etc. Suggestion for alternate ways of providing current service levels. While outsourcing may be viewed as a potential savings, it would greatly reduce response time for repairs, safety corrections, and emphasis on preventive maintenance. The continuity of having a skilled, full-time, capable, and responsible labor force, being familiar with the equipment and the layouts of each building, should be viewed as a valuable investment for the operation of the county. The accomplishments of my 13 staff members is likely to come at a bargain rate when compared to the outsourcing the same level of services. Some suggestions to reduce the required funding. Update to energy efficient equipment or materials, in other words, lighting, things like that. Funding would either be approved through the capital improvement project or with grants. Emphasize prevention services for buildings and equipment maintenance. Currently, we're more of actually a reactive team than a proactive team, although we do a lot of preventive maintenance. Consider implementing a 4-day work week with extended business hours for all non-emergency divisions. This could allow additional service periods for patrons working traditional business hours. And this one, review the cost savings by having all county bargaining units return to a 37.5-hour work week. That's what currently our staff is on. Our staff. Many of them are based on 40-hour work weeks. Mandated services. None of these services provided by facilities management is mandated. The question arises, are we better served by a full-time staff, or could all of the services be contracted? Would the level of service suffer? Would the safety of our patrons be put in question? And finally, in closing, I strongly believe that the county is better served by having full-time maintenance and grounds care personnel. The aging infrastructure has been maintained well beyond its normal life expectancy. Due to the highly skilled and knowledgeable staff capable of working within the functions of the parameters established by the Board of Commissioners. And with that, I'll take questions.
Questions from anybody?
Yes, sir.
I spoke a couple of months ago to a county administrator downstate. He has a couple water parks and other things like that. Anyway, one of the things that he has done successfully is he worked with community mental health. They had functional people that assisted their facilities people in mowing the lawns and the parks and all that kind of stuff. And it was paid for by community mental health budget. Are you familiar with any of that?
I am not.
So apparently, he says it worked just great, and it was a good asset, and it helped them out, and the people were reliable and well-trained, and they actually, the community mental health person, they assigned those people someone to manage them, so you wouldn't have to do that. Would that be of any interest to you?
Absolutely. Anytime I
Okay,
can
I'll,
get
I'll see if I can connect the dots for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
Other questions? Chris?
Danny, first I want to say that I think your staff is outstanding. The one thing that I have trouble with is the one area I have trouble with, why you don't look at contracting is groundskeeping. Have you recently looked at contracting out mowing and shoveling? Do you do any contracting for snow removal? Or
Yes.
you do?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Do you do any contracting for mowing?
No,
You don't?
we do all the mowing ourselves.
Why?
Well, because we got very good employees that does the mowing, and they do it right. But it's much more than just mowing. There's the fertilization, there's taking...
Could you move your microphone just a little,
Over
please?
this way?
I have trouble in one ear, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Better?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
They do much more than just mowing. They take care of all the irrigation, they fertilize, we plant flowers. Paul Johnson on my staff is very good at what he does, and the other 3 gentlemen on my staff in grounds are very good at what they do as well. So I never saw a need for it. However, if we keep adding these buildings, I'm going to have to do something, because we got a lot of work to do out there.
Have you, as you add buildings, have you looked at contracting, maybe a building at a time, to see how it works?
I have not.
So what do your grounds staff, what do they do in the wintertime when they're not mowing?
This one?
Mainly fix equipment. Our equipment's
Is
really...
this winter?
Our equipment's really going through it right now, I'll swear, because of all of the, how much it's being used with all the snow. But we do much more than even ground stuff with those folks. We move furniture, a lot of furniture. We do things for other departments because we have trucks. We move files. We store furniture, and when we need to repurpose it for someone, we go get it for them and we deliver. So the picture is much broader than just grounds. We do all kinds of things.
What are you working on right now?
Oh, gee.
We've had how many? 3 leaks at the Hall of Justice?
Yes. Had 3 leaks at the Hall of Justice, and those folks, those ground folks with their trucks, moved a whole basement full of files for the circuit court, or the district court. And it was right in the time when we were getting a lot of snow, but we did it. And those leaks created a lot of problems for all my men, actually, not just groundsmen, but for everyone. So they all pitched in, and we got the court room back in such a fashion that they used it today, although it's not completely done. So we have to go back and do that.
But there's wallboard being done? there's-
Wallboard being done, we're doing a spray foam insulation in a bulkhead, sort of like that, where we've cut into it, and we'll spray that out where the bulkhead is actually on an outside wall. But yeah, they do a lot of different things.
Move the clerk's files?
Clerk's files, yeah.
How long did that take?
Those files are not done, actually.
And how,
Half of them are done. That
Okay.
took a whole day with 3 people. So,
Yeah.
Charlie?
Danny, do you have an idea what you do spend on maintenance of outside grounds and things like that?
we don't,
Total, on a departmental basis?
well, we don't really have it busted down that way.
Okay.
All buildings has a line item in it for maintenance, but I could get that information.
Well, I just wondered, because I think Chris Maxbauer makes a good point about outsourcing possibly mowing and things like that.
Mhm.
We see a lot of those kind of businesses around the county. A lot of private citizens do that kind of business.
Right.
If you don't have a number to compare it to, it would be hard to get an idea whether
I
it
can
would be
get you the-
worthwhile or not.
I can get you the number.
That's just one area I'm asking about. Jim,
Okay.
actually.
Dan?
How many guys did it take to put up the new big pictures of the judges?
That's a one-person job, isn't it?
Which ones are those? The ones,
Well, the $1,000 frame and photos that the judges had taken, did you have to put them up or not up yet?
no, we have to put them up.
Okay.
Yeah, we do everything like
I'm
that.
just teasing the judges, that's what.
I got you.
Other questions? You know, my only concern is that when we pick up a place like the Myers House and stuff like that, and if we have a contract with like the Conservation District, you know, why can't that be a full, all-encompassing contract with them to being responsible for those buildings? And the same thing with like our Health Department. If we decide to do something with the pavilions, that would take that off from your list, and it would be a full-service contract. That would be their responsibilities, not ours. Is that feasible?
I would think it could be.
Good.
I would have to look into it.
To me, I think that would be, you know, very beneficial for us to be starting to look at, you know, how do we provide these leases to become full-service leases that it becomes their responsibilities to maintain those facilities, rather than using our people to have to go up there and be able to take care of it.
Sure.
You know, once a year, a walkthrough to be able to make sure, or twice a year to make sure that they're being maintained to our levels, I think would be sufficient. And to be able to make ourselves in that direction, which would help relieve some of the load off of your people. You know, anytime I've ever run across any of the staff that you've got, they're always busy, they're always working.
Yes.
But also, one of the things I noticed, because I ran a maintenance service, that if you want to know what's going on in the county, talk to one of your people. They
Right.
know what's going on.
Yes, they do.
Charlie?
One other question. Do you have a large overtime budget in your department? You sound so busy.
We do overtime. There's no doubt about that. When you say large, I don't know what that means.
People are complaining about it.
We have to do overtime the way we're structured because we do ball fields and things like that, things of that nature. And we plow on the weekends. And out of the 4 guys, they rotate. One plow driver rotates every month, or every week, I should say. And that person is on overtime, yes.
Dan?
Did I understand you right that, maybe I didn't, I have hearing problems. Did you say that you take care of the fire departments?
Yes, the 2 city fire stations.
What is it that you do for them?
Change balances and light bulbs. We, keep their furnaces and boilers running properly. Just things like that, just general maintenance.
And they pay you for that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they do.
I think it's also important to note that our jail, you guys do quite a bit of work over there.
We do a lot of work there.
You know, and I don't know how that's broken out, if you're compensated for your budget through their budget to be able to take care, I don't know how much cost accounting we're doing on something like that,
Well, we actually have our own budget for maintenance of the jail.
on the jail, do you?
Yes,
Oh,
and I have a staff person in that jail that works there every day.
yeah.
But it needs help.
Believe me, I think we all know that.
Yes, it needs a lot of help, actually.
It's an old building.
Yes.
Other questions? Chris?
How would we go about getting information whether or not it would behoove us to take a look at contracting, mowing, and/or plowing?
How?
Yeah, how would we go about
Well, what
determining whether or not it would be beneficial for us to contract mowing and/or plowing? And, there are a large number of small businesses that do plowing in the county.
Yes.
As well as mowing in the county. And maybe it would behoove us to take a look at putting our manpower towards other things other than mowing and plowing, which is something that I envision. And Danny, I'm not being critical. I don't know that much about your business, but it just seems to me if we're paying overtime for plowing on weekends, or if we're paying overtime for mowing, that's not necessary, in my view. When there are so many small business owners in this county that could contract. You know, I guess you're looking at somebody, I mean, I can run a lawnmower.
Don't threaten her because she's liable to.
Good window washer,
It just
too,
doesn't
right?
seem
Miss
to-
Window Washer over here.
Yes. How do we go about, determining whether or not we can bid some of this out?
Well, I
And maybe
can
that's
do-
more of a question for our administrator than Danny.
Easy enough to do.
I can do it.
I think it's
We can
also
figure it
important to
out.
note that the Commission on Aging came with us, and they found out that they didn't have that many people that could bid on that. So, but I think it was bidding apples against peaches.
The bidding was not.
Was not done
It was
very-
not written,
It was terribly bid.
it was not written correctly.
That's
You and
right.
I both agree on that.
So, you have to come to the microphone.
Janice?
Come on, Janice.
In the past, I'm Janice Lane, I'm the office coordinator for facilities. In the past, we also had the Pugsley inmate crew that helped with a lot of the stuff. That went by the wayside, but in the way past, we had inmate workers from the jail. And I don't know if that is a program that could be re-implemented to help our crew spread their services at a lower cost.
I think they do some of the snow shoveling here at the county building,
Yes.
that
Well-
they help out.
You know, some of your buildings, your smaller ones, use Front Street for an example. You know, you could get somebody over there. There's no overtime over at that building because it's not a 24/7 operation. The 24/7 operations, the Gov Center, dispatch, jail, stuff like that, are the emphasis. And then you also have, if you get heavy dumps on the weekend, they can't play catch-up on Monday morning, no matter where the location is.
You have to plow with the
So
snow.
that's where part of the overtime comes in.
Yeah.
But it'd be great if there was some kind of leverage that could help re-implement the prisoner program and/or the jail work release program. I'm not sure whether that's an option or not, so.
Thank you, Janice.
Any other questions?
Just one more. What else do you do for parks? You mow the lawns, you set up the fields for playing, you mark the fields, that kind of
Yes.
stuff? What about the pool? What do you do for the pool?
Well, we take care of, we don't do any of the chemicalization of the pool at all. That's all done by pool staff. But we clean the pool deck. I mean, we don't, a private company does. But we take care of some of the stuff in the mechanical room, such as some of their things that injects the chlorine into the water, things
Yeah.
like that.
Does that take a lot of your time, or?
Not a whole lot, but there is times that the point is that we're on call. I mean, we got to do it like right now because, and a lot of times we provide that service to them, let's say, within an hour or so,
Gotcha.
because we're around there. And, but as far as,
Locker room?
pardon?
Anything in the locker room?
Yes, we take care of mold issues that are in the locker room and things like that. Even though we have a cleaning service there, my men goes in there and they will remove the mold. We just did a mold application here 2 weeks ago, I think it was, in the ladies' locker room.
I understand that's a structural problem with the mold.
It is. It's the way that it's constructed there. There's some waterproofing that's over the top of the block that at some point, and I think it'll be the next shutdown period, we're going to have to take that off and clean all that up, so.
All right? Thank you.
Yes, thank
Thank you,
you.
Danny.
Capital Improvement Fund?
Yeah, that's the same guy.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Keep coming.
Don't run.
That's the one near to my heart.
Just before we move to that, Danny?
Yeah.
Could you just briefly, the facilities fund is about $1.1 million. Could you tell them, like, tell them your staff, what that's paying for?
Who they are?
Yeah, just numbers. You know, you, Janice.
Well, there's 13 people, 14 including myself. Two of them are electricians. One of them is a plumber. He's the full-time person in the jail. One of them, or two of them, are carpenters. They build stuff like that, this podium. I have two of those folks. Then I have 4 grounds people, 3 grounds people plus a coordinator, which is Paul Johnson. Who'd I miss? I have Greg. He's a locksmith. He's also an HVAC person. He chips in when we really get under the gun to keep everything running properly. And then I have Casey, who is in Butch, who are HVAC people. And by the way, Casey's a licensed HVAC specialist. So he really knows this equipment because he touches it all the time. So that's,
And any outsourcing or any kind of contractual services that are ongoing that are not being done by staff?
yes, there's EPS, that services all of our locks and our swipe card, all of our security. Then we have security. That's an outside source.
Right.
You got one guy that knows a little bit about computer technologies and be able to take care of the courthouse with their cameras.
It's Greg. Yeah.
So
He
he saved a lot of money for the county.
Yes, he has.
And because he was doing something that even the people on the outside couldn't come in and do.
Right. And he's learned it.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't know it going in. He's learned it on his own. So he's valuable. They're all valuable. Move on to CIP.
Are there any other things that are outsourced? Just the one item?
Custodians.
Yes.
That's about it? Okay.
Oh, yeah, the custodial contract. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a
Right.
big one.
Okay, the CIP fund. In the budget for 2014, there's 188,232 proposed. And of that, the biggest chunk of that would be for 2 new air conditioners for the jail. Those were built or installed in 1984. They're getting quite old, and we're just afraid that they're going to fail on us on a real hot, muggy summer day. And then we are in trouble. So that's, giving their age, that's why I have this in this fund, or I have the funds, have this in this fund. Here's another one for an example. The walk-in freezer at the jail is also a piece that's from 1984. Well, you know how critical that could be. We've had to work on it many, many times. We also have a dishwasher in that, for the jail, that's in this fund. And we've got miscellaneous items like new oak doors for the east side of the historic courthouse. That gets a lot of sun, and it's time. They need to be changed. You can hardly open them, and the fire department is kind of on me about it, you know, to make sure, because that's an egress door. And then we have locks that needs to be changed when in the historic courthouse. When that courthouse was remodeled back in 82, there was a lot of the locks changed. But a lot of those locks in that courthouse, they're like 50 years old. They're wearing out, literally wearing out. You can't get parts for them. You have to change them, put new locks in them. And they're not cheap. I have $22,000 in on that line item. So that's the items that make up this fund. Also, I have some stair treads that need to be put on Front Street. I got a rusted platform for some stairs at the police department. And the air conditioner in the lobby of the pool is quite old, and it needs to be changed. So that's what makes up the fund.
Do you have a 5-year plan?
Well, I did.
We did. Then we threw it out the window.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a helpful tool for me because I just add the year onto it each year, and then we got a lot of things done, a lot of things accomplished through that 5-year plan. That I implemented that in 2004, and we spent a fair amount of money changing some of the older equipment. But how long are we going to establish this fund? Is it going to be more? Are you going to budget more money for it, do you think?
I think that there's, I've been telling Danny to put together the list, and I'm sure he's got it now, for roofs, boilers, chillers, parking lots, all the big-ticket items that have to be replaced on a regular basis. Take the asphalt out in front of this building, it's going to break up, it's going to start getting sprouts through it, it's going to have to be recapped. It can be recapped twice, and then it's got to be torn out and done again. And so there's a life cycle to it, from tearing it out, capping it, and tearing it out again. That is a cost that should be amortized over the number of years, and we should be putting X dollars aside every year for that. And we just have, since you've gotten away from your 5-year plan, you've gotten away from that. We've got to get back into that, and that's part of the deficit that we're looking at. We're getting by right now, but we're not addressing long-term needs.
I thought it was interesting watching the City Planning Commission discuss our parking lot and how if we were a business, we would be held more accountable to make sure it was taken care of, whereas a government entity, we seem to be ignoring it, which shame on us.
Well, you can
Well,
shame us if you want, but the
City has a
fact that
surplus,
they might
ask
do
them.
so revenue
Right.
makes me really hopeful we'll be able to take care of that problem.
But yeah, so, Dan?
Well, how much money do we need to throw at this that we're not? Can you give me a ballpark figure so that when we...
Oh, I guess it's a pretty significant number. Annually, probably in the
150
100 and
range?
so, yeah, 100 to 150,000 a year
A
range.
year? to
That
keep
should
up,
really
yeah.
be put aside for all those things
So what are we putting aside now?
in pieces. Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, we're doing it as we go.
Okay.
We just replaced the chiller here, or chiller.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
We're
We're
going to
just
start doing
basically
that.
sticking our heads in the sand.
Well, we're putting aside money for capital improvements, and then we're buying these huge ticket items out of one year's budget, and there's no room left for other things.
Other things.
And it's just because of the constant reduction in tax revenue and the constant reduction in state shared revenues. You just can't, you got to cut somewhere. And so they cut back on capital improvements, thinking that next year was going to be better. But next year, well, actually, it's starting, it might be better. That would be nice if we finally turn that corner, but
Chris?
that's how we got here.
I would really like to pursue the idea of looking at contracting our mowing and our snow plowing.
Got it down. It's on the list.
Other questions?
I want to add just one more thing
Sure.
to that. In the past, and this was before my time on the county board, for instance, the American Legion used to take care of their own ball fields. They would still like to, but that has not been an option, they've been told. These are things I think that we need to look at and explore in depth.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big chore for us, actually.
And they would be happy to do it, and I can't imagine that you would be unhappy to give it up.
I would be very happy to give it up.
There you go.
Wow, great. Let's make it.
A win-win.
Yes.
Is that, we're talking about striping?
Striping and
Yeah.
Raking.
Yeah.
They'd like to do it themselves,
We do it behind a vehicle.
and they used to. But they've been told they can't.
Drag it.
Yeah. But sometimes there are things that happen in the spring that need to be corrected.
Well, you got to put the diamond dust on them every spring. It builds up that hard-packed surface. Yeah.
Okay.
There's one other thing I'd like to bring up that Janice just pointed out to me, is the jail locks. For some reason, it didn't get approved. in this budget, but we are in dire need of some new locks for that jail. That's another situation where they are so old, they're the original locks, 1965, can't get parts for them, and it's very expensive to have those things changed out. There's a plate that's this big on the locks, both sides, and it literally has to be welded. We have to bring a welder in there, put a new insert or a cylinder insert, and then weld that together. So it's quite a little process, and it's not cheap, but it's got to get done, right, Bob?
How much money is that, Dan?
Well, I put 30,000 in here for that.
How many locks is that?
That would be 6.
Yeah. You can purchase and install, and it's a separate installer.
Right. So it's about 6. So you
How
see,
many-
it's pricey, but,
How many locks are there total?
oh gee.
Well, it's a 168-bed facility, so there's probably 168 plus locks,
Plus all
plus
the,
all the entrance and
Right.
sally port doors and all that.
All the catwalk doors, all the housing unit doors, corridors.
250 maybe?
Some have been changed. It was in the 5-year plan for a while.
It's another thing that ought to be on the
So
list.
some have been changed already.
Well,
some,
Yeah.
not many, but some,
there's
yes.
funding in the
Okay.
CIP fund.
Other questions that we have?
Oh, for the-
Really, I think that, this is one of those things that when the administrator gives us his budget, that we probably don't spend enough time looking at it as to whether or not we agree or disagree. As to, this is one of those places that you could have a good discussion on as to where's your priorities? And where did that priority fit? Where does it go? Like document imaging, is that the highest priority? Is your facilities budget, is that a higher priority, than what he's doing? I think he's done just a fabulous job in trying to balance all the issues. But, if we don't agree, then we should be having that kind of a discussion
Yeah,
in the budgets.
more than one brain out there.
Yeah.
And I rely heavily on Danny to
Oh.
figure out what's important. I mean, he looks at these buildings all the time and hears from the people. Janice is right on top of everything, and when they say, this has got to be done this year, you gotta go with that.
Yep. So we're very fortunate to have Danny as our maintenance person in charge of it. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, he's on his phone.
Thank you.
The jail locks issue does bring forward the issue of the jail in its entirety. I mean, we have a
Yeah.
168-bed jail, we're overcrowded today, although we have a work release area that says we're not overcrowded, that we can't put any inmates in, we can only put work release people in. So, I mean, the day is coming. I spoke with the sheriffs, I had a meeting with the sheriff this morning, he brought it up again. I mean, how do we do that? I said, well, you don't really have a problem until you're overcrowded, do you? Well, we're overcrowded right now. Well, not according to the state. You've got a 194-bed maximum. But you can't put 194 people in that, incarcerate them here. So, I mean, that facility, we've outgrown it, and it's really old tech, so that it's very staff-intensive. We're paying a lot of staff money that could be translated into building money and then paid off, whereas staff money just keeps going. I mean, for every officer, it's about $1.5 million over a 20-year period. When you finance a building, and you think about how expensive that's going to be, it's about $100,000 a bed for a new jail. So say you want to build a 250-bed jail, it's $25 million. So the debt service on that's going to be, something you never had to pay before. But when you start taking into account, you may be able to have less officers. Then you can start looking at the math on that and figuring out where the break-even point is. You might be able to pay for it just out of the savings in the officers over the 20-year period. It's $1.5 million for every single officer. You can cut 10 officers. You're talking about cutting a lot of money out of the...
I'd still like to see us look at a regional jail. To me, that makes more sense than anything else.
I mean, Leelanau's got a pretty good-sized facility, but
Yeah, they're not willing, they've already built what they got. I'm not sure where Benzie is. I think it was it Wexford that's looking at building a new jail, or was it Claire? Huh?
They're in bad shape down there.
Yeah, Wexford, I
yeah,
think.
Wexford's got a
So-
small jail.
Whether or not we could, come together and talk about whether or not we could have a joint jail authority that could be responsible for the jailing of our inmates for multiple counties.
Why don't we actually do something about it? I don't know if this is the meeting to do it, but
Well, you have to have the approval of your sheriffs, and you also have to have the money that you're going to want to be able to start it, to be able to do that, and you have to have the willingness of other counties that are willing to let that go in that direction.
I know when I met with Captain Hall, he talked about sharing a jail. And who is a neighbor that you thought might be amenable to that, Captain?
Wexford. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just starting to have those kind of discussions to find out what's there. This is not something you're going to do in the next year or two. This is something you put in a 5-year plan that you're going to be looking at and how you're going to be able to get to that point.
Maybe we should have an ad hoc committee and start.
Well, I think our administrator and our jail could be the people that are the ones that are going to bring that issue to us. Chris?
If we don't meet with Wexford County, we're not going to even get to step one.
I agree.
And the idea that we're not going to do it in the next year or two,
May not help them.
well, I think we need to call up Wexford County, and if you want me to, I'm certainly willing to pick up the phone and call them and say, do you want to sit down and at least have a meeting and talk about this? Because we are in bad shape here. And the other question I have for the administrator is, are we looking at some, it's more inexpensive, more cost-effective, whatever you want to call it, to house inmates in Leelanau County than it is to keep them in our own jail. So are we looking at a way, for instance, for people who are sentenced that we know are going to be sitting there for incarcerated for 6 months or whatever it is, they've already been sentenced, they're not going back and forth to the courts. Have we looked at arranging with Leelanau County of housing those inmates?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we've had people up there already this year, and maybe today even.
No, we haven't had anybody up there since the first.
Okay. But, I mean, that's certainly on our radar screen that we're going to be doing that. And we've got $54,000 in the budget to board out inmates this year. Don't know if we're going to need it or not, but the fact of the matter is it's a dangerous jail, the way it's designed. Bob, Captain Hall is really...
I don't argue that, but okay.
knows what he's doing because he hasn't had a whole lot of incidents. We haven't had to pay a lot of fight-related...
So my question is, who's going to pick up
expenses.
the phone and call Wexford County?
I can do that. It's not a problem.
That'll be good.
That's not a problem.
Charlie?
I see the captain's here again. Is there any cost or any projection as to what the new style jail would save us head count wise with respect to this linear system you have now?
Quite a bit.
I've heard it wasn't. So Dave brought it up. I'd like to know what it is.
We knew you were here for a reason, Captain Hall.
And it's not mauve today.
Yeah.
I liked it, though.
Yeah, thanks. I'm Bob Hall, I'm the jail administrator. The only prices I can affix to that question, or to help answer that question, stem out of the Blue Ribbon Committee study that was done here back in 2004, 2005. They were looking at a 250 to 300 bed jail, and they were tossing out the $30 million figure. But that included moving the law enforcement back together, so the sheriff's department and jail were all under one roof again. I don't know in today's economic times what that would translate into or not, but it's not a cheap venture.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is about $100,000 a bed.
But what is the difference? Old jail, new jail, personnel. You're trying to sell
gonna be
the new
it's
jail
gonna be
based
a-
on that. Tell us what the number is.
Well, I can give you that number, but it's going
Love
to take, you kind of have to decide that's the road you're going to be on.
Not if
I've
we're
got
just- Not if we're just curious.
I've got a way of doing that, and,
So that's that will be on the list of things that we might want to look at. Great.
New jail construction is much more staff efficient than
Yeah.
our linear jail.
That's what we want to know.
I think the question is it how fewer jail
officers.
personnel do we
Officers.
need to operate a more efficient jail than what we have today? And what's the break even and how more cost efficient it would be?
If you built a jail like our jail, which you would not want to do. If you built a jail like our jail and made it a 300-bed facility, you'd have to almost triple the staff that you currently have. I would dare say you could probably build a new age jail with the direct supervision housing pods and make it a 300-bed jail and probably keep the existing staff as being the staff necessary to run it. Maybe add a couple, depends on how it's laid out, but it nowhere near as staff as intensive, and you could almost double the capacity.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at it.
Other questions?
It's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. So we can put that on our wish list.
Sure enough.
Okay? Captain, thank you.
Anytime, Dan.
The tag team. Danny, is there anything else in the capital improvement fund that you'd like to talk about?
Well, I'd like to dig out my 5-year plan and go over that a little bit.
I think we should bring it back for the commissioners to be able to review.
Can
That
do
should be
that.
another on the wish list. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Danny?
Next is the soil conservation. It says soil, but it's just conservation district. We need to change our terminology on that. Jen, are you going to be the lead on that? Ben? Okay. While you're at it, if you would introduce your newest employee, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'm Jennifer Jay. I have been pleased to serve on the board of the Grand Traverse Conservation District for 7 years. I'm here to thank you for your past support, your ongoing support, and also to introduce our staff. Standing here is Wendy Warren. Wendy Warren began her service with us on Monday. Today's her 3rd day. It's a crash course. I know she's looking forward to meeting each of you individually. Wendy will serve as our Director of Programs. She comes to us from the city of Bangor, Maine, where she was Environmental Coordinator and was awarded a statewide award for her wonderful service there. We're excited to have her with us, and I know that each of you will enjoy meeting her as well. Also accompanying me is Ben Purdy. Ben is the Parkland Program Coordinator, and also Steve Largent, somewhere there, Steve Largent, who is our Boardman River Coordinator. Ben and Steve are going to walk you through kind of the history of the Conservation District, fill you in a little bit about the services that we provide and their value to the community, and then the 3 of us will be happy to answer any additional questions.
All right, hello everyone. Again, Ben Purdy, Parkland Program Coordinator for the Conservation District, and I'm just going to give a real brief synopsis about the history of the GTCD and some of the services we provide today. So just by the way of background, every county in the state of Michigan has a conservation district. The Grand Traverse Conservation District was started in 1941. We originally got started helping farmers reduce soil erosion. We've changed over the years as the community has changed, and today we serve public and private landowners, farmers, families with children, landowners, municipalities, and homeowners. We provide services in every township in the county, and one of the things that I think you all can be proud of is that we are one of, if not the largest and most successful conservation districts in the state of Michigan. We are often held up as a statewide example, as a model of success. We lead the state in the number of meat verified farms in the area. That's a state MDA program that we administer, and most of that success can be traced in large part due to the baseline funding that we've enjoyed from the county for over 25 years now. So we appreciate that. Just answering a couple of the questions on the sheet you provided as far as the number of people served. We reach about 14,000 users every year for our education programs. We've worked with about 150 farms in the area. Again, working towards groundwater protection and MEP verification. We have over 100,000 park users on the land that we manage, about 3,000 acres in the county. And those are some of the direct numbers, and that breaks down to about 35 cents a person in county funding for all those services. According to the USDA, that we also support about 1.5 million recreation or user days on the Boardman in Grand Traverse County each year. So I didn't even bother factoring that in as far as the cost per person. And I'm going to let Steve talk a little bit more about some of the specific services we provide as it relates to the Boardman.
Thanks, Ben, and thank you for having us here today. Like Ben said, my name is Steve Largent. I'm Boardman River Program Coordinator. I've worked for the Grand Traverse Conservation District now for going on 22 years, and it's been a great privilege to be able to do that. The Boardman River watershed is 287 square miles, and 2/3 of that is located in Grand Traverse County, and it drains about 188,000 acres of land. And it really adds greatly to the quality of life that we all enjoy here in Northwest Lower Michigan, and it also contributes 1/3 of the surface water input to Grand Traverse Bay. And so it's very important that we take care of the Boardman, because as the Boardman goes, so the bay goes as well. And so it's really important and critical for the health of our environment. It is also important as an economic driver to this community. It's figured that there's county residents, Grand Traverse County residents, spend about 8,000 paddling days on the Boardman each year, and visitors another 6,000 paddling days. You add that to the fishing economy. In total, the Boardman River provides about 1.9 million to the local economy with fishing, paddling, camping, and trail activities. So it's very important to our local economy. And so, of course, with the Natural Education Reserve and the Boardman flowing through that, we're going to have some increased responsibilities there in the near future. And it won't go the other direction, it won't decrease. It's only going to increase as this area continues to grow and develop, and our resource management needs are going to increase as well. So in a nutshell, that's what we do and who we are. And John, do you want to add anything further? Yeah, to one point, yep.
You want to do some questions for Steve, or do you want to, if you got more presentation, Steve?
No, we're ready for questions, Bill.
I have one question. What's your projection for the cost going forward of taking care of the Boardman River area that's being taken over by the dams?
You mean that's going to be exposed once the dams are removed, and particularly Boardman and Sabin? Mm-hmm. A lot of those are going to be covered through other funding, that associated with dam removal, and so that, as far as the cost to the county, is that what you're looking at? There's going to be an increase in, of course, trail systems and the use and the users of those bottom lands, and so we're going to have to be able to respond to that. Ben, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, it's very hard to put an actual dollar amount on it at this point, because so much of the plans are preliminary and we're not sure where the exact course of the new river channel will be. But you can assume that on a per acre basis, the cost is going to be quite a bit higher than the rest of the parkland. The rest of the Natural Education Reserve has been around since 1976. It's got a mature, well-developed trail system existing on the parkland already. The bottomlands, once they're exposed, of course, will have no provisions for public access and recreation, so all of that will have to be created. We'll also have to do pretty intense monitoring and rapid response for invasive species to make sure that we don't end up having to spend vast amounts of money in the future with habitat improvement due to runaway invasive species. So I don't have any dollar figures on that. We'll know more as the Army Corps of Engineer process evolves. But right now, I think there's, in contractual services, there's about It's about 60,000 a year dedicated to that park, and it's depending on the number of amenities that we want to provide as far as trails and bridges and boardwalks and overlooks and safety issues with new riverbanks and things like that. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to increase that by 50%, say, for the say 5 years after dam removal, and then that would start to taper down as the systems are established, and it's more of a maintenance issue rather than capital improvements at that point.
How many acres do you manage for Grand Traverse County?
505.
And for how much money?
That's about that $60,000.
Plus, we give them the lease, or we just signed a lease for their building that we don't charge them for that lease, because that is our building. And but on the same token, you know, out of all their budgets, they're also having to take care of all the maintenance on that. And that kind of, just like in all the other Grand Traverse County facilities, doesn't get the attention that it needs to get because the money's not there to be able to do it. And I think that in the future, you know, to be looking at the Conservation District as to whether or not they can cut cost when we continue adding parkland, this is not a company, this is not an area that we're going to be able to cut cost for. And my question is whether or not you can take over more of the parkland for Grand Traverse County and be responsible for it, like Badali Park, like some of these other parks that we have, you know, but then they would contract to do that. They could be one of those contractors that Danny Brown looks to build a contract to be able to maintain those facilities, but it all comes at a price, all has a cost, because, you know, I've never seen an organization that can use baling wire and binder twine better than they do at keeping their equipment together and being able to go out and do things. Steve goes out, he got himself one of these brand new come-alongs, and to be able to haul trees out of the river in the springtime, and has a great volunteer crew that goes out and helps him be able to do that. I don't think Steve could do all the work without the volunteers. I have to say thank you, because he is using tremendous amount of volunteers out there. And you know, there's even the canoe people, Dr.
Norm Fred.
Yeah, Norm Fred, with his canoe group, figures that he needs about $3,000 a year just for hauling trash out of the river. And they need, and nobody's funding it. So, you know, this is some of those things that there's a huge amount of need for the conservation. And the reason I know this, because I'm your liaison, and I've been really active with the Conservation District over the year. I'm a big proponent of it, and I must profess that. Of all the stuff that they do, they're probably, we get the biggest bang for our dollar with this organization.
Well, thank you, Herb. We certainly appreciate that, and that is one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is bringing value to our customers. And just for point of reference, last year we brought about $58,000 of external money to the Natural Education Reserve. I didn't speak to that earlier, but with many of the federal and state grants that we administer, we bring in several $1 million to the county residents, you know, benefit to the county every year, but it's that baseline support that enables us to leverage that. So.
And I'd like to add to that, you know, we're able to work with volunteers, and that really helps with our match component of a lot of these grants. I mean, we are able to leverage what you provide us in additional grants, such as, you know, through Boardman River Clean Sweep or the Great Lakes Commission or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or, you know, many of these grant sources that we're able then to bring money in and put towards managing these resources.
You also have a 3-year agreement coming up with the parks.
Correct.
I see a letter that came through that hopefully the parks will sign that for 3 years. You know.
I can speak to that.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, the Parks Board is 150% supportive of our relationship with the Conservation District. We did hold off briefly on renewing that agreement for any great length of time because we were looking at how we might expand the agreement. We are well aware of the outstanding job that the Conservation District does for Garfield Township and their parks, and we were hoping that we could capitalize on that. But it doesn't look like at this time with the transition that the Conservation District has been going through, that that's an option. But if it is, let us know.
Thank you, Commissioner Max Bauer. We are interested in pursuing that conversation with you. As you know, the district is going through a time of transition. We've just completed a strategic plan, and part of that strategic plan includes developing a sustainable business plan, during which time we would love to have a conversation with you to pursue what works best for us as an organization with our limited staff capacity, you as the county, and also for it to better serve our community.
Dan?
Yeah, I just throwing an idea out. You guys keep trails all over. Good job at it. What about doing Power Island? Because I know when I was out there this summer, the main trails that are on ground level were fine, but they're kind of non-existent up in the hills where it's really interesting to hike.
But there are people out there who want them left that way. It's quite a divided organization in that direction that, because I started looking at that.
They weren't, they were absolutely neglected. They weren't, yeah. Is that what you want?
Yeah, but it's amazing how they're split. There's a lot of people who want to leave it natural and don't do anything with the trails. So,
Real
Charlie?
quick, Steve, can you give us an update on the Brown Bridge Pond? What's happening there, and what are the plans for this season out there?
Currently, we're putting together a planting plan that's funded through Gourmet Game Dinner proceeds, part of what you were talking about as far as leveraging other funding. And what that planting plan will do is focus on the riparian area along the 2.5 miles of new river channel through Brown Bridge. There's also going to be upgrades to the access canoe landing, in particular below the dam, the existing canoe landing. We're going to provide a parking area down below so people can go down and park and drop off and then drive up on top and park. So it's going to be much better access. So that's what's going on right now: trail development, restoration of the bottomlands in the river corridor, and access improvements.
It looks much better out there as time goes on, for sure. Do you expect that kind of stuff to happen in 14 with respect to the access?
That's going to actually happen in the spring. We're going to open that gate and get that parking area down below fixed up.
I think it's also important to note, you're going to see an increase in number of canoeists and tubers probably going down that river this year in comparison to last year, because it's being found.
Paddlers.
Beautiful, beautiful river. I've been down it 2 or 3 times now with Steve, and also hiking the trails up and down along the, it just absolutely, when people look at it, they're going to find this is a gem, and they're going to want to spend a lot more time there. And it's going to take a little more maintenance. Other questions? Jen, you got anything else you want to add?
That's it. Just to thank you for your support. It really is due to the county's commitment to the natural resources and the care of it, that you have the state's best conservation district, and we hope to stay that way.
Other questions for the commission? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is county planning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Good afternoon. My name is John Syke. I'm Planning and Development Director for Grand Traverse County, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present some information on our department this afternoon. Before I started, just kind of wanted to go over a little bit about what our department does. We're a small department. We have 4 current employees. We're, as you know, looking to fill 1 extra position. But we're not necessarily like other departments within the county. We're not necessarily one providing direct services in terms of customer base like some of the other ones. But what we do focus on is really trying to provide solutions and answers to some of the broader issues that are facing the county. So we utilize Essentially, our boards and commissions, we utilize process, financing, legislation, collaboration, and other means to address these broader issues. And we do that in terms of looking at planning, which is, in essence, your strategy, your roadmap on where you want to go. And on the other side is development, which is where actually you're having implementation and you're actually having some outcomes. So planning and development is the same as strategy and implementation. It's the same as collaboration and results. It's the same of having a vision and then improving your quality of life. So it's really kind of an approach that we've applied to a lot of different issues facing Grand Traverse County. In terms of our customers, we really kind of look at them at two different sets. We have our internal customers, which are primarily initially our 6 boards and commissions that we have. We staff the Planning Commission, Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, the Economic Development Corporation, the Land Bank Authority, the Next Michigan Development Corporation, and the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Board. And also, we also serve our fellow departments within Grand Traverse County. We assist them with whatever their needs are in terms of planning, information, and assistance. And then we also have our external customers, and those are the customers really out in the community, and we work heavily with a lot of our local officials. We have a continuous relationship with the city, villages, the townships, and so forth in our community. And we also work heavily with developers and businesses that are accessing a lot of the programs that we provide to the community. But we also have, in essence, kind of a diplomatic approach to a lot of things even outside of Grand Traverse County. We are often engaged in a lot of things happening down in Lansing, and we're fortunate that a community of our size has the opportunity to have the dialogue with a lot of the state agencies that we do. And we recognize in that case mainly because of a lot of the successes that have gone on in this community. And by doing so, it really gives us an inside opportunity to really help shape some of the things that are happening in Lansing that ultimately benefit Grand Traverse County. In terms of how many are served at what cost, it's a little difficult to quantify. We have 41 board members. We also have the 7 commissioners here as part of our customers. On average, I would say we probably assist about 3 to 4 departments in Grand Traverse County on an annual basis. I would say we have a continuous working relationship with about over 100 township, village, and city officials. And when I'm talking about that, I'm not talking about just elected officials. There's 129 planning commissioners within Grand Traverse County, zoning board of appeals members, and so forth that we have interaction with. I would say on average we're probably dealing with about 50 different developers a year in terms of some of the programs that we have, and as well as about 50 different local businesses and consultants. In terms of why these services are important, I'd kind of focus on 4 different areas. First is leadership in planning and development. In this decade, the county is forecasted to gain about 15,000 people. That's going to put us over the 100,000 mark come 2020. 75% of this increase is coming from people moving in and into the county. And as that occurs, it's important that first we understand what the trends are in terms of where there's that population increase, what's happening, understanding what the needs are and so forth, and then responding to what those opportunities are as well as what the implications are resulting from this change. So that's really important for us to take the opportunity to take a leadership role in that in terms of the Grand Traverse County. In terms of economic development, the second one, I don't think there's any other entity in this county that's probably as active in economic development as our department is in terms of discussions, in terms of planning for economic development as well as projects. Cleaner environment is something that is really an interesting role because it's something that's typically led by state and federal agencies, your DEQ, your EPA, and so forth. The Grand Traverse County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has taken the lead in a couple different cases here in Grand Traverse County, namely Front and Division intersection, Traverse City, as well as Hall Street in the city of Traverse City. In a case where I think if the Brownfield Authority, while it could have easily just ignored those issues, have really kind of taken that on in a way that normally would be probably like the DEQ involved in that. But because that is not a priority, because water quality is a priority for this community, the Brownfield Authority has really extended itself in a way that has been, so far, pretty successful. The fourth would be public finance tools. I think at this point, I don't think you've probably ever had as great a set of public financing tools as now available to you in terms of addressing community needs such as infrastructure, housing, and other issues, in terms of tools right here within Grand Traverse County government. And it's under the leadership of this board, along with applying those tools through our department and all the boards and committees that you have, that really have an opportunity to really address a lot of these particular issues in our community. In terms of changes in state legislation coming soon, I don't think we have any identified right now, but I will say that we have been involved in actually crafting state legislation and have had a hand in that. Recently, Gene Dorenzi, Deputy Director in our department, was actively involved in a key group of stakeholders that was in terms of writing the new Brownfield legislation, which transformed a lot of that legislation and bringing it up to date. Again, it's that opportunity to be involved in those state discussions that a lot of communities don't have the opportunity to. In terms of demographic changes that will impact activity or revenue, I mentioned the population forecast. There's a couple other notable impacts that's happening in our community in terms of population and demographics. One is the seasonal population, which our best estimates right now, we're in dire need of a seasonal population study, but we estimate that there's about an increase in the summer population of about 25% in Grand Traverse County. So that's adding roughly 22,000 plus people into the county at the summer peak time. In addition, this area is a major employment hub in northern Michigan, so on a daily workday basis, we're seeing about an added 12,000 people coming into the county for employment on a daily basis. So these add into, along with those other, that general increase in resident population in terms of the activity happening in Grand Traverse County is pretty significant. One of the drivers, as we know that, and I'm sure everybody else knows here, is that the quality of life in this community is what attracts a lot of people in terms of their interest in locating here. It's that balance between having a significant amount of urban services along with access to natural resources and amenities in our community. So it's maintaining that balance, which is really critical to the vitality and the future of this community. So looking at in terms of how we respond to these changes in terms of our population impacts and how do we maintain that balance is really where planning becomes an opportunity to really deal with these issues that are associated with those changes. And we feel that the county is really in a good position because it has a broad look at a lot of these issues. It's not focused on one particular area, and it recognizes that it's part of a larger region. What are potential revenue increases and how much would it generate? Our department focuses on a variety of revenue sources. We utilize program administration, project revenue, obviously our general fund appropriation, grants, our newly established revolving loan fund with the EPA grant is one approach. But most importantly, we also are focused on the benefit of a lot of these programs, and that's the increase in tax base. When you look at the Brownfield redevelopment program, and we're now seeing after years of investment and dedication to that program, we're seeing some of those results. Most recently, the completed Brownfield plan for Copper Ridge has generated an additional $100,000 to the general fund for Grand Traverse County alone. The Premier Place Brownfield plan, which was recently completed, adds another $40,000 into the general fund per year. For 2014, we're looking at some other opportunities in terms of revenues. We're looking at 2 EPA grants totaling $1.2 million. One's an assessment grant and one's a revolving loan fund grant. Then a potential contract with the Traverse City Downtown Development Authority at this time to provide economic development services for the city. And then we're continuously looking at the state for opportunities for funding. One of the things we're looking at is in terms of some target market analysis activities, which would benefit some of the planning efforts that we're doing in terms of the city for economic development. What is the potential for outsourcing or merging with other entities? That's something we are always looking Most recently, we're still working on in terms of completing the transfer of the Economic Development Corporation's revolving loan fund to the Chamber Foundation Board. And once that's done, that will free up our staff time and resources for other efforts. Collaboration-wise, we see most recently, I think it's a great opportunity for us to work with the Traverse City DDA and the City of Traverse City for Economic Development Services. They recognize the value and the expertise that's provided by the county in that area. And finally, the Next Michigan Development Corporation really has a great opportunity in working collaboratively with the county, the townships of Garfield, East Bay, and Blair, as well as the City of Traverse City, to utilizing particularly the Local Development Financing Authority tool in that entity in terms of bringing in revenue that can to address infrastructure needs, but it can also bring it to support that program so it's self-supporting. How would you implement a general fund budget reduction, and what impact would that reduction have upon services? To give you perspective, our department utilizes 0.5% of the general fund. We've made significant changes for 2014, as you're aware of our recent staffing plan changes. And this has amounted to basically a decrease of 16% compared to our budget back in 2010. Also, not too long ago, as you recall, we eliminated the annual housing appropriation that the county made to the City Housing Commission for $40,000. So those combined savings have really resulted in an annual savings of $76,000 from the general fund. These reductions have forced us to really kind of look at the way how we conduct our business, and one of the things we're out looking at is to contract out for services, specifically for project efforts that we need. It's important to note, though, that as much as we try to provide our services in a self-supporting financing mechanism, it's important that the county understand it. Its investment in staffing the department allows us to leverage it for added value to the county. Most grantors, when we're going out seeking funding and so forth, want to see that there's some local commitment. So that money that you do provide to the department in terms of the staffing allows us to demonstrate that local commitment. And from that, we've been able to get a lot of different returns to the county. For example, the master plan that I just showed you there, that's the one that you actually approved back on November 27th of last year. In 2002, when the plan that we just replaced that with, in 2002, the county developed a master plan at a total cost of $55,256.23. This year, the year that just passed, 2013, we actually made money on that plan. We actually, through our resources, doing it in-house, using little consultants and actually going after grant dollars to supplement some of our activities, we actually made about $21,000 on that plan. So that's kind of an interesting approach when you actually think about it, that actually you can make money when you do planning. Another example of some of the things that we look out for are that pay back to the county on a continuous basis, as you most recently may have witnessed or remember hearing about our energy efficiency grants, and which then result back in a couple years ago resulted in some new boilers at the Civic Center, replacing lighting in this building and other building facilities, and that's really a continuous energy savings cost that the county can experience for the next several years. The department also has the capacity to secure those resources outside. So I talked about your commitment in terms of the department and staffing the department and using that to leverage. When we look back since 2010, we've secured $8,276,474 in grants. So $8.2 million is what we've brought in terms of grants. Most of those grants into this county have been related to support economic development. So we feel that's a pretty good return on your investment in terms of the planning and development department. And then beyond those grants, we're also looking at other funding mechanisms. I mentioned some of the revolving loan funds. We have the brownfield redevelopment and the housing revolving loan funds that were established. We really feel as a unique opportunity to be self-supporting in our community, so that we don't have to rely on grants necessarily, that we can do things such as loans and so forth that help build these. The current Economic Development Corporation, the revolving loan fund, was built with a grant. It started over the years and has prospered, and now we're having it to where we can provide it to the Chamber Foundation Board so that they can use that as a way to provide financing for businesses in our community. So those types of funds really do become successful over time. Which services are not mandated and could be discontinued? What impact would they have? The department is not specifically mandated. However, discontinuation would have significant impact on existing program commitments. For example, all the brownfield plans have contracts, and requirements for those contracts need to be monitored. They have tax increment financing plans associated with them. All of our grants and revolving funds would not be administered. Public assistance to key projects like the village at Grand Traverse Commons would cease. But more importantly, we feel that discontinuation would prevent the county board from achieving many of its goals, particularly some of those goals that you have in the strategic plan. For example, strategic goal 3 in your plan states, excuse me, address the county's infrastructure needs, including establishing a capital improvement and infrastructure plan in coordination with pertinent entities and governmental units, outlining identified needs, priorities, and budget. That's something that we have experience in. It's something that we've already done in terms of planning. We've been able to lead efforts both internally and externally. We have some of the expertise that I think that would be able to assist the county in that process. We have done some capital planning for the county in the past, looking in terms of long-term. Plus, we also have some of the tools in terms of implementation that can help to assist in achieving some of those capital needs. Strategic Goal 7 states, pursue initiatives that advance the health and quality of the life in the region, including support and advocate for community-wide economic development initiatives. Again, I don't think there's probably any active agency to the level that we are in terms of economic development, and I think we can continue to be that lead entity for you in terms of implementation of economic development initiatives. Support and advocate for affordable housing is also stated in the plan. Right now, we're managing your housing programs. We're expanding your capacity to address affordable housing with the Land Bank Authority as well as the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. And furthermore, as an example, recently we just completed the housing inventory and the housing strategy for Grand Traverse County. Another objective, support and advocate for community-wide collaborative initiatives in alignment with the county strategic plan. One of the things that we did in the master plan I just handed out is we really did a ground-up approach in terms of process. And it really engaged all the planning commissioners in Grand Traverse County in terms of defining that plan. We're now replicating that process in terms of the Bayshore Corridor strategy. I think it's that type of a process that really you get full interest and commitment from others and support ultimately for those particular plans. And I think that's something that we can learn in terms of actually how do you do these collaborative initiatives. There's a lot of time invested in them, but ultimately I think they pay off a lot better when you invest that time in them. The last objective I want to point out from your strategic plan is support the Road Commission's plans for improved roads and bridges. Right now with the Next Michigan Development Corporation, you got a real tremendous tool in there in financing in the Local Development Finance Authority. I think that's a great tool that really, we've already had some initial discussions with the Road Commission on how that tool can supplement some of their efforts in terms of improving the roads in our community. So I think that's about it in terms of my questions, or my answers to the questions that you had posed for us. Questions?
Have any questions? Chris?
John, are you familiar with what the city is doing with property, I think it's north of Tom's West Bay, what they're considering as far as giving a tax break to some property up there for low-income housing?
Vaguely familiar, just based on recent news reports.
Okay. I just wondered if you had any more, other than what I've read in the newspaper, if you've got any additional information on that.
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
The Cordia Group has done, what's the name of the group?
Yeah, Cordia Group.
No, not Cordia.
No,
It's
WODA?
Oh, the WODA Group is the one
WODA,
that...
isn't it?
WODA,
Okay,
yeah.
right.
They've done other projects in Grand Traverse County, so, they're not new to the area.
No, they're a large group.
Charlie?
Tax capture districts going forward, do you see any change with respect to regulation and stuff to return some of these funds to our general fund more rapidly than capturing these tax increments for all these years? I know there's a lot of other areas that are questioning that, townships and stuff like that, statewide.
Well, I think what happens a lot of times is that when we set up tax increment finance districts, there's this thought that when you set it up, it's got to last for 30 years. I think one of the things we're looking at is it doesn't need to be for 30 years. For some of these things like a downtown development authority or corridor improvement authority, it's thought of that it needs to be 30 years. In terms of the next Michigan Development Corporation, the LDFA, we're seeing that we're going to be really project driven. So once that project, whatever it is, say it's widening a road, new sewer, water, whatever, once that's done, then you finance, once the financing is done and the project is paid off, then you eliminate that TIF, so then you get the value back to the taxing jurisdictions. And we've been talking with the taxing jurisdictions about this, and they're supportive on economic development. They want to see the community prosper, but they also understand that they do need that return and eventually see the revenues coming into the revenue stream. And I think that what's really helping us to move this forward is just communication and working together and recognizing what's important and what's the best way to apply that. So I think I could see where in the past in some communities it has been difficult with TIF, where it has been kind of just, steering incremental revenues away where they aren't going to those taxing jurisdictions. But I think if we approach them a lot differently, I think we'll have greater value and support by everybody.
Thanks.
Other questions? I think it's important to note that this master plan that was put together was not just done by John's office. It was done by all the planning commissioners in Grand Traverse County. They all came together because John was able to bring them together to talk about their common issues to be able to put this together. The other thing I think is rather important to note, that one of the pictures on the front cover has to do with the Boardman River, on how important what the Conservation District does for our community to be able to provide all the problems, all the programs and services that people are demanding. That's why they're moving here. So, nice pictures on the orchard and the concerts. That must be Corson, or no, that's Interlochen, isn't it?
Yes.
Interlochen Arts Academy. So there is a picture someplace that showed back when that first started that there was 10,000 people came to a concert out there when it first opened up. And it's rather interesting because that was back in the 30s. When they first, in that picture, just, if you look at it, you go, how did they ever do that? Because we didn't have the expressways. We didn't have the roads that we have today. and they came here because they wanted to see a concert. So, other questions? Thank you. Nice job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And you and Gene have done just a great job, and your staff has done a great job for our county, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anything else to be brought? Next is public comment. Chris?
Well, I don't know if anyone saw their email, but Michigan Association of Counties just sent one out, a notice out. Yeah, everyone saw it.
Yeah.
Governor's recommending 100% revenue sharing.
Yeah.
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 That's $1,000,005.
The number in there, in the MAC thing is, we think a couple $100,000 shy. Because right now, in 2014, we're getting just a hair over $1.7 million that we're authorized to withdraw from our tax money that was collected years ago. We run out in 2015, and they say we're going to get $1,574,000, I think was the number. And that's a little, I don't know what table they're looking at, but it's not the one that the Treasury Department gave us for what we could take this year.
This came out 5 hours ago.
I know.
We're looking at the same one, okay.
Yeah, my recollection was that
Yeah, Dean says it might be what the remainder. After the revenue sharing reserve fund is exhausted, they might be taking our projection. We might have a couple $100,000 that we'll have to fund in 2015, and then the state money will kick in.
I'm still not holding my breath
I'll tell you what,
It's a lot better than what we thought it was going to. But I think also this is important why we are a member of MAC and NACO, because they went to bat for us.
Oh, they've
And they've been pushing and
relentless.
pushing. And I think also all of us have gotten to our legislators and said, this is very important for counties, and they've stood fast and they're working toward it. And I think it's really important to say thanks to our legislators and for MAC for what they've done for this too. So, Dan?
How much are we, might we get a year? and how long?
well, we've got $1.7 million built into the 2014 budget. That's what we can take out of the revenue sharing reserve fund. In 2015, we're going to run out. And I think we have about a couple $100,000 left, and then the state has to pay us. Well, they made a promise that they would make us whole, but then they cut it every year since that promise was made, and we were expecting somewhere around $1 million out of the 1.7 million, so we were going to have to take about a $700,000 hit. And we had built that into our projections when we started talking with our unions about what we needed, and we decided that we needed to get another $500,000 plus in the second year in order to cover that problem. If this comes through for us, I mean, it's actually going against the deficit that we've got, our structural deficit. So
By the tune of $1.5 million.
Now, how
Well, no,
many-
to
how many years will
the
we get
tune
this?
of about 700,000.
Forever.
Goes back on, is what happens.
Yeah, it's a revenue, I mean, it's an ongoing revenue.
So are you confident in the legislature?
Am I confident the
with the
legislature's going to do it? No,
recommendation? That's my point.
but I'm hopeful.
Some of
Yeah.
it then.
I think the point of the MAC notice is that we all need to contact our legislators and the governor's office and say, thank you very much for keeping your word.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is the time to do that.
So,
We'll be giving you a resolution for that.
I was just going to ask, are we going to do a resolution from the board here thanking them for keeping us in
Yeah,
that
and some
hole?
personal notes, too.
Yeah, okay. Other public comment? Anything else to be brought before this board?
Motion.
We are
to
adjourned.
Hey, we did lunch. We do have time.